welcome to the TLC Designs YouTube channel. My name is Lynn, and today I will be creating a holiday card because it is Christmas in July after all. I'll be working with the Classic Santa Slimline paper pad and the Holiday Fun stamp set. So what I am creating is a 5x7, a little bit of a twist on a bay window card. So I just took a 5x7 card blank. This strip here is 1 inch by 7 inches, and it's basically going to serve as an easel stopper. And so I'm going to give it a little bit of lift with some low profile foam. This is 1 millimeter thick. And I'm actually being careful to actually not put this too close to the edge because I do want the front panel of the card to be able to slip underneath this easel stopper. And on the front panel of my card, I've already scored and folded it at 2 3/8 of an inch, and then another score line at 2 5/8 of an inch. If you actually want to see me make this card base, you can actually pop on over to my channel. I've cut that portion of the video out of this video just to keep it a little bit shorter, but it's just two very simple score lines. So on your 5x7 card base, that front panel, you just want to score it at 2 3/8 of an inch and another score line at 2 5/8 of an inch. So that gives you a just that thin 1/4 inch strip. And I've attached another piece of pattern paper that actually matches this one with the trees really well. It's actually the same background, but without the trees on top of it. So it coordinates beautifully, as do all of the papers in this paper pad. And what's great about the paper pad being slimline is that each sheet is 5.5 by 8.5. So a normal 6x6 paper pad would not be able to give you these full mats and layers that I have on this 5x7 card. So that's why it's really fantastic that Tammy has her paper pads in this slimline, convenient size. So these panels here I have cut to, it's actually just shy of the full white panel. So it's actually cut to 2 1/4 by 6 7/8. And the reason for that is that because we have those two folds in the center, it's going to be really hard to butt up two pieces of paper at that fold and not see the white card base coming through. So why not just intentionally have a little bit of a white border all the way around? So that's why I've chosen just that very thin matte, and so it looks a little bit more intentional having that white show through. So now we're going to do some stamping and some masking. So I have one of the dies from the Celebrate Frame die set. This is the plain rectangle die that's the inner aperture of the larger frame. And it's got some nice debossed detail as well, but the outside cutting edge is a straight edge. I've already stamped out one of the girls from the Holiday Fun stamp set, and I stamped her a second time, but onto some masking paper. What I use for masking paper is actually Avery repositionable labels. It's very, very affordable. It comes in full sheets, and you can just stamp and cut them down as needed. With masking and stamping, I always find having a stamp positioning tool to be really helpful just in case you need to have a second impression, because you're going to be stamping over your mask. And that difference in kind of texture and levels of paper might impact your stamped image. Now, All of Tammy's physical stamps are photopolymer, so they stamp beautifully. I haven't primed them, I haven't used them before, and most of the time I'm getting perfect impressions first time through. And the key to stamping well a masked scene is you want to start from whatever is closest to the viewer. So you want to start from the foreground and work your way backwards to whatever is backmost. And the reason for that is so that as you go along, you can apply your masks, and that will essentially block whatever gets stamped and happens to overlap that object, so that it actually looks like the things in front that are closest to you are blocking you from seeing the things that are further back and behind the foreground images. Now, I used my die to trace out that outline in pencil so that I know what the boundary lines are for my scene, so I can make sure that everything I want to be visible will be visible. And I did bring on a moment ago the second girl that I want to stamp. That way, as I was positioning the tree, I could make sure that there was still enough room left over for the second girl, because I want her to be fully visible. Now, I did stamp the tree a couple times because it is getting stamped over, multiple layers of cardstock. And I just took a ghost impression, or a second impression, onto, this is the Avery repositionable label here. And you can, if you want, you can fussy cut the entire image out, but I'm not a huge fan of fussy cutting, so I just fussy cut what I need. And in this case, the only portion that I need is going to be that left-hand side of the tree, because that's where the second girl in my scene is going to be. And so that's the only place where the tree could potentially overlap with her. And that's therefore the only thing that needs to get masked off. So I'm positioning her again just to verify, and I found that I do need to snip off a little bit more of the tree just to make sure that this looks, realistic. And I'll place it right over. If you see a little bit of your stamped image, that's okay. And if you cut a little bit inside of your stamped line, that's okay too. You just want to make sure that you're really covering everything inside your stamped line. And then I'll stamp out my final girl here. This stamp set also comes with some really cute hats, and like a Santa hat and an elf hat. And if you wanted to dress your characters up with these hats, you would stamp the hat out first before the character, because the hat blocks a portion of the head. So you want to make sure you stamp the hat and then mask the hat off before you stamp out your characters. I totally forgot about that. When I was originally thinking about it, I thought that I might dress at least one of the girls up with the Santa hat. But then as I was getting underway, I totally forgot to do that. But it's definitely an option. And this is the most fun part of masking and stamping out your scene. When you pull off your mask, look at how amazing that looks, and it's all perfectly flat. You could achieve something very similar to this by stamping and then fussy cutting out all of these individual elements and layering them up onto your scene. But I love how you can have just this perfectly flat scene that you can then color. And I've actually stamped this with a hybrid ink, because at the time I wasn't sure what medium I wanted to use to color, and a hybrid ink is always a good choice when that's the case for you, because hybrid inks can work with alcohol markers and water-based markers as well. So if you're not 100% sure what your plan is for coloring, I would definitely pick up, if you don't already have a good hybrid black ink pad. I happen to use, there's two that I really like. I like Nuvo's hybrid ink, and I like Graphic 45's hybrid ink. So both are really good options. For the sentiment that does come included in the Holiday Fun stamp set, I'm stamping in VersaFine, which I always find really gives you a nice, crisp, dark impression. And I actually think the Graphic 45 gives a darker, more solid black impression than the Nuvo black ink pad. So it just depends what you prefer. If you really like a very dark black line, or if you actually prefer it to be a little bit lighter. And of course, there's always the option to stamp in maybe a sandy or a tan color if you wanted to do some no-line coloring. That's also an option as well. And so now that I've got my scene fully stamped out, I'll go ahead and die cut that out. And I'm going to do the coloring off camera because I actually decided to use color pencils to color up this scene, and that always takes me a really long time. So rather than watch me color, I'll just go ahead and skip ahead a little bit. I did want to add a little bit of a matte to this rectangular panel here, so I've just used a trimmer to cut out this green panel, and I used my corner rounder to punch the rounded corners. And all that's left now that I've colored up my scene is to go ahead and assemble everything. So I'm gonna attach my scene to my green panel, but when I go to attach this to my card base, I'm actually only going to attach it to that middle, that little 1/4 inch strip in the center there. So with a normal bay window card, this middle section would be much wider, and you would probably attach your full scene nice and flat against that middle section. But what I wanted, the look I was going for instead, was to actually have this middle panel sort of pop out a little bit. And when you open the card and put this on display, you can see how that middle panel just kind of feels like it's floating there. And I think for the holidays especially, it's really nice to create cards that are just begging to be put on display so that you get your card right on that primo mantle space. I hope that you enjoyed this card, and if you are interested in any of the products that I used, I'll be linking to them in the description box below. Thanks so much, and until next time, happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Bye!